The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a sterile glow across the conference room. I stood at the front, heart racing, palms clammy against the sleek surface of my laptop. The air smelled faintly of burnt coffee, a reminder of the morning's frantic preparations. My slides flickered on the screen behind me, each one a testament to late nights and relentless revisions. I could feel the tension in the room, an electric charge that crackled as my colleagues shifted in their seats, their eyes trained on me with a mix of anticipation and skepticism. As I began my presentation, I poured my passion into every word, determined to showcase the hard work I had dedicated to this project. This is not just a presentation. It's the culmination of my efforts and ideas, I declared, trying to mask the tremor in my voice. Jessica, my supervisor, sat at the back, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. I could feel her gaze piercing through me, a silent judgment that made my stomach churn. Just as I reached the climax of my pitch, a dismissive laugh erupted from Jessica, cutting through my momentum like a knife. "Please, Amber, save us the theatrics. We all know how these things go," she scoffed, her tone dripping with condescension. The laughter that followed from a few of my colleagues felt like a slap in the face, igniting a simmering anger within me. I tried to regain my composure, but the sting of her words lingered, casting a shadow over my confidence. Moments later, everything spiraled out of control. As I concluded my presentation, I was met with a sudden and unexpected firing. "Effective immediately, Amber," Jessica announced, her voice devoid of empathy. My breath caught in my throat, disbelief washing over me like a cold wave. The room spun, and I felt the weight of humiliation crash down upon me. How could this happen? I had poured my soul into my work, only to be dismissed as if I were nothing more than an inconvenience. I gathered my belongings, fighting back tears that threatened to spill. The laughter of my colleagues echoed in my mind, a haunting reminder of my failure. I stumbled out of the conference room, the sound of my heels clicking against the polished floor felt like a countdown to my impending breakdown. I had to get out of there. The world outside was blindingly bright, a stark contrast to the darkness that enveloped me. I felt hollow, betrayed, and utterly alone. My heart raced as I thought of the betrayal I had just experienced. I would not let this define me. This was only the beginning of my fight for justice. The dim light of dawn seeped through the curtains of my small apartment, casting long shadows that seemed to mirror my own turmoil. I took a deep breath, the familiar scent of freshly brewed coffee filling the air, yet it did little to calm the storm brewing inside me. I had barely slept, replaying the events of the previous day in my mind. The way Jessica had smiled, that sharp, predatory grin as she delivered the news of my termination, still haunted me. I could almost hear her voice echoing, dripping with the satisfaction of her betrayal. Sitting at my kitchen table, I absent-mindedly stirred my coffee, watching the steam curl and dissipate, much like my hopes for a peaceful resolution. I glanced at my phone, considering reaching out to Sophie, my best friend, for support. But the thought of sharing my shame made my stomach churn. Instead, I decided to face the inevitable confrontation with Jessica head-on. I needed answers, and more than that, I needed to reclaim my dignity. As I stepped into the bustling office later that morning, the atmosphere felt charged, electric with unspoken words and hidden agendas. I could hear the chatter of my coworkers, punctuated by the sound of keyboards clacking and phones ringing. Yet it all felt distant, as if I were submerged underwater, the noise muffled and surreal. I passed Jessica's office, catching a glimpse of her through the glass walls, her focus unwavering as she spoke animatedly on the phone, completely unaware of the storm that was about to hit her. My heart raced as I approached her door, the cool metal of the handle feeling foreign in my grip. I hesitated, my mind racing with doubts. What if she dismissed me again? What if I was making a fool of myself? But I couldn't back down. I had to confront her. I took a deep breath, steeling myself against the vulnerability that threatened to overwhelm me. Just as I was about to knock, a memory flashed through my mind. The first time I had presented my ideas to the board, the thrill of success, the pride in my work. I wanted that feeling back. I wanted to stand up for myself, to remind Jessica that I was not just a casualty in her ruthless game. With a newfound resolve, I knocked firmly, the sound reverberating through the silent corridor. The door creaked open, and I stepped inside, the air thick with tension. Jessica looked up, her expression shifting from surprise to a mask of indifference. "Amber," she said coolly, her tone laced with condescension. "What do you want?" I squared my shoulders, determined not to let her dismiss me so easily. "I need to talk about my firing." "You owe me an explanation." Her lips curled into a smirk, and I could feel the anger bubbling beneath the surface, but I held my ground. I would not let her manipulate me any longer. This was just the beginning, a confrontation that I had to have to reclaim my narrative, to ensure that my voice would be heard, no matter the outcome. The weight of betrayal hung heavy in my apartment, each shadow cast by the dim lamp seeming to whisper secrets of deceit. As I sank into the worn fabric of my sofa, I felt the rough texture against my skin, a stark contrast to the smooth, polished surfaces of my office that now felt so distant. The air was thick with the scent of brewed coffee, a bitter reminder of the morning I had been blindsided. I could still hear the echoes of Jessica's dismissive laughter, a sound that twisted like a knife in my gut. I stared at the wall, each crack representing a piece of my fractured trust. My phone lay untouched on the coffee table, its screen illuminating my dark thoughts. The silence was oppressive, punctuated only by the distant hum of traffic outside. Memories of my colleagues flooded my mind, their faces, once a source of camaraderie, now felt like a gallery of judgment. I remembered how Jessica had smirked, her eyes glinting with triumph as she watched my world crumble. How could she do this to me? The betrayal ignited a fire within me, an anger that coursed through my veins like molten lava. I took a deep breath, my chest rising and falling in an attempt to quell the storm brewing inside. I needed to focus, I needed a plan. My thoughts turned to Michael, whose cautious nature often clashed with my impulsiveness. I picked up my phone and texted him, seeking the support he had always offered. "Can we talk?" I typed, my fingers trembling slightly. When he arrived, I could see the concern etched on his face, his brow furrowed as he took a seat across from me. The room felt charged with unspoken words, the tension palpable. "Amber, you need to be careful. Jessica isn't just going to roll over after what happened. She's powerful and has allies," he warned, his voice steady but laced with worry. I met his gaze, my determination hardening. "I can't just let her get away with this, Michael. I have to fight back. She turned my own team against me, and I won't allow my career to be defined by her treachery," I replied, my voice rising with conviction. I could see the conflict in his eyes, his instinct to protect me warring with the reality of the corporate battlefield we were entrenched in. As we talked, I felt the weight of my decisions pressing down like a heavy cloak. I needed a strategy, a way to expose Jessica without jeopardizing my own position. With each word exchanged, my resolve grew stronger. I recalled the conversations I had with Sophie, where her unwavering support had sparked the initial embers of my rebellion. "You need to gather evidence, Amber, document everything. If you confront Jessica, you must have proof of her manipulations," Michael suggested, his voice calm yet insistent. His words resonated with me, igniting a flicker of hope amidst the chaos. I nodded, envisioning the meticulous plan I would craft. Later, as I sat at my kitchen table, papers sprawled before me, I could feel my heart racing with the thrill of the challenge ahead. The rhythmic tapping of my pen against the table matched the pounding of my heart, a symphony of determination. Each note was a reminder that I was not going to be a victim. I would reclaim my narrative. In the quiet of the night, I pieced together my plan, my mind racing with possibilities. I could hear the distant sounds of laughter from a nearby bar, a stark contrast to my solitary pursuit of justice. But I was ready to confront the obstacles ahead. Jessica would not escape unscathed. This was only the beginning. The battle for my dignity and career was about to unfold, and I would come prepared. I wouldn't let her define my story. With renewed purpose, I closed my notebook, the pages filled with strategies and ideas that would lead me closer to justice. I could feel the adrenaline surging through me, a reminder that I was still in control of my destiny. The fight would be tough, but I was tougher. This was my moment to rise, and I was determined to seize it. The dim light of my apartment was a stark contrast to the harsh fluorescent glow of the office, yet it did little to ease the turmoil inside me. I sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by scattered papers and empty coffee cups, remnants of my late-night brainstorming session. The air was thick with the bitter scent of coffee and the weight of impending decisions. My best friend, Sophie, sat across from me, her brows knitted in concern as she watched me pace, the soft carpet beneath my feet giving way with each anxious step. "You need to think this through, Amber," Sophie urged, her voice steady yet laced with worry. "Rushing into this could backfire. You know Jessica won't take kindly to being challenged." I paused, her words echoing in my mind like a warning bell. A flash of Jessica's smirk from the last meeting pierced through my thoughts, making my blood boil. She thrived on manipulation, a puppet master cloaked in charm, and I was determined not to be her next victim. I glanced up at Sophie, who was now fiddling with the hem of her sweater, a nervous habit of hers. I can't just sit back and let her get away with this. I need to gather support to show the board that I'm not the only one affected by her actions. "If I can expose her lies, maybe I can regain their trust," I replied, my voice taut with the urgency of my resolve. Each word felt like a promise to myself, a commitment to fight back against the injustice that had been thrust upon me. Sophie nodded slowly, her expression shifting from concern to determination. "Then we'll plan this together. You're not alone in this fight," she reassured me, her eyes brightening with a spark of hope. I could feel the tension in my chest easing slightly. Her support bolstered my courage. We began brainstorming ideas, mapping out who could be allies in this battle against Jessica's deceit. As we flipped through notes and gathered our thoughts, the weight of the world seemed to lift, if only for a moment. The sound of pages rustling filled the room, a symphony of planning and strategy. I could almost hear the thud of my heart synchronizing with the rhythm of our brainstorming session. My mind raced with possibilities, every potential ally, every whisper of dissent against Jessica's rule. Later that evening, as we finalized our strategy, a sudden wave of apprehension washed over me. What if Jessica found out? The consequences could be dire, not just for me but for everyone involved. I paced again, the carpet now a familiar terrain of my anxiety. What if this backfires, Sophie? What if I lose everything? The question trembled in the air, heavy with the weight of uncertainty. Sophie reached out, placing a reassuring hand on my shoulder. Amber, you've always been a fighter. Yes, the risks are high, but so are the stakes. You deserve to stand up for yourself. Remember, the truth has power. It's time to take it back, she encouraged, her voice firm yet gentle. I could feel her sincerity as it wrapped around me like a protective shield. Fueled by her encouragement, I solidified our plan. The next step was the confrontation, an opportunity to lay bare Jessica's manipulations in front of the board. I could picture it vividly, the boardroom, the air thick with tension as I presented my evidence. I had to be strategic, but I also needed to ensure that my emotions didn't cloud my judgment. The following day, I stood before the mirror, my reflection staring back with a mix of determination and fear. With a deep breath, I straightened my back and squared my shoulders. In that moment, I promised myself I would reclaim my power. The showdown was imminent, and I was ready to face the consequences of my fight. I would not be a victim in this corporate game anymore. I would be the one to turn the tide. The dim light of the late afternoon sun filtered through the blinds of my office, casting long shadows across the room and highlighting the mess of papers strewn across my desk. The atmosphere felt heavy, thick with unsaid words and unresolved tension. I sat in my chair, fingers tapping nervously against the cool surface of my laptop, my mind racing with thoughts of the impending confrontation with Jessica. How could I possibly bridge the chasm my decisions had created? You can't keep avoiding this, Amber, I murmured to myself, the sound echoing in the silence of the room. The walls felt like they were closing in, and I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of my own doubts. Memories of laughter and camaraderie with my team replayed in my mind, now overshadowed by the discord that had erupted since my announcement. My breathing quickened as I imagined how they would react to my attempts at reconciliation. With a deep breath, I picked up my phone and dialed Michael. He answered on the second ring, his voice warm but laced with concern. Amber, what's going on? I can hear it in your voice. I'm trying to figure out how to talk to Jessica to make her see reason. I don't want this to end in a complete disaster, but I can't shake the feeling that she's going to push back hard, I confessed, my voice shaking slightly. The thought of facing her again made my stomach churn. Just be honest with her. You need to show her that you're willing to listen to find common ground, he advised, and I could picture him pacing the floor of our living room, the way he always did when he was deep in thought. His support was a lifeline, yet I couldn't ignore the gnawing anxiety that threatened to consume me. I hung up, feeling both calmer and more unsettled. I glanced around my office, searching for some semblance of clarity amid the chaos. The large window overlooked the bustling city below, and I found myself momentarily distracted by the frenetic energy outside. People hurried along the sidewalk, their lives continuing in a blur, while I felt stuck in this limbo of my own making. A knock on the door pulled me back to reality. It was Sophie, her face a mix of empathy and encouragement. Hey, I thought I'd check in. I know you're going through a tough time. Want to talk? Her presence was comforting, and I motioned for her to sit. I'm at a loss, Sophie. I don't know how to make things right with Jessica. I want to apologize, but I'm terrified of her reaction. What if she doesn't care? I leaned forward, gripping the edge of my desk, the wood cool against my palms. Sophie's eyes softened as she listened intently. You've always been a fighter, Amber. Remember when you stood up for yourself in that last project? You can do this, but you have to approach it with humility. Show her that you acknowledge the impact of your decisions. She might surprise you. Her words resonated with me, igniting a flicker of hope amid the turmoil. You're right, I can't go in guns blazing. I need to be open, vulnerable even, I replied, feeling a sense of resolve start to build within me. As we chatted, the tension in my shoulders eased slightly. I could hear the distant sounds of the office, phones ringing, colleagues chatting, the hum of printers, all reminders of the world I was about to step back into. But this time I had a plan. I could confront my fears, lay bare my intentions, and perhaps, just perhaps, begin to mend the rift I had created. After Sophie left, I spent the evening drafting my approach. My heart raced as I composed my thoughts, hoping to strike the right balance between accountability and resolve. This wasn't just about me, it was about the entire team, our relationships, and the integrity of the company. I knew what I had to do: reach out to Jessica, not just as a colleague, but as someone who shared our collective goals. When I finally hit send on the email inviting her to meet, I felt a mix of relief and dread wash over me. It was a small step, but in the silence that followed, I realized it was the first step towards peace. Whatever happened next, I was ready to face it head-on, determined to reclaim not only my position but the trust I had lost. The next morning, as I prepared for our meeting, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I would enter that room not just as a leader but as a teammate willing to listen. And perhaps that was the key to finding our way back to each other. The air in the boardroom felt charged with unspoken tension, a palpable reminder of the stakes that had risen since my last encounter with my colleagues. As I paced in front of the sleek glass table, I could feel the coolness of the surface beneath my fingertips, grounding me as I prepared for the confrontation I had been dreading. I stole a glance at the faces of my peers, each one a mix of skepticism and guarded hope, and I could almost hear the unspoken question lingering in the room: would I finally deliver the resolution they needed? I took a deep breath, allowing the scent of fresh coffee to fill my lungs, a comfort amidst the chaos. Memories of my journey flooded my mind, each misstep, every moment of doubt, they all converged into this singular point where I had to reclaim my voice. Was I truly ready to confront the consequences of my actions, or was I merely postponing the inevitable fallout? I could feel the pressure building in my chest, but I steeled myself for the moment I had envisioned countless times. When I finally spoke, my voice cracked slightly, betraying my underlying fear. I know I have let you down, and I must face the repercussions of my decisions. I've hurt not just the company but each of you by prioritizing numbers over the people behind them. As the words left my mouth, I felt a wave of vulnerability wash over me, but I pushed through, sensing a shift in the energy of the room. The room fell silent, and I could see the flicker of acknowledgement in their eyes. It was as if a collective breath had been held, waiting for the next words to spill forth. I continued: today I want to share my plan for recovery, one that includes every single one of you. Together we can rebuild trust and integrity in our work. This is not just my journey, it's ours. As I laid out my vision, a sense of empowerment began to replace the fear that had gripped me moments before. I could see nods of understanding and even a few hopeful smiles. The walls that had seemed so insurmountable began to crack, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was no longer alone in this fight. This was my moment, a turning point not only for my career but for the relationships I had jeopardized. With each new detail I shared, the tension in the room began to dissipate, replaced by a sense of camaraderie that I had thought lost forever. I realized then that while my journey had been fraught with mistakes, it was also filled with opportunities for growth. I was finally taking steps toward closure, not just for myself but for the entire team. As I concluded my presentation, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. I had faced my fears, shared my vulnerabilities, and in doing so, I had opened the door to empathy and collaboration. It was a risk, yes, but one I was willing to take for the sake of my team's future. This was the beginning of my redemption, a chance to rise from the ashes of my previous failures and forge a new path together. My heart raced with hope as I stepped back, ready to embrace whatever came next. I could feel the tide turning, and for the first time, I believed in the possibility of healing. My journey was far from over, but this pivotal moment set the stage for the resolution to come. The air in my office felt electric, charged with the weight of the betrayal and the resolve that had begun to manifest within me. I sat at my desk, the polished surface gleaming under the harsh fluorescent lights, casting a stark glow over the scattered notes and documents that lay before me. The scent of coffee lingered, a bitter reminder of the long hours I had endured, and I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins as I prepared to devise my plan for revenge against Jessica. As I spread out my notes, flecks of my thoughts spilled onto the page, each word a building block of my strategy. I envisioned a gathering with Sophie and Michael, my steadfast allies who would stand by me in this battle. I could almost hear their voices, echoing encouragement in my mind, urging me to take action. The thought of their support fueled my determination, and I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me. I leaned back in my chair, allowing my mind to wander to the moments of our last confrontation. Jessica's dismissive laughter echoed in my ears, a sound that had stung like a slap. "You think you can just sweep this under the rug?" I recalled her taunting tone, and the anger bubbled up within me once more. I wouldn't let her win. I refused to be her pawn any longer. The idea of gathering evidence against her began to take shape in my mind. I envisioned meticulously documenting her manipulations, her interactions that had crossed the line into unethical territory. Each piece of information I could gather would serve as a weapon, a way to expose her true nature to the board and reclaim my position. The thought sent a thrill of anticipation coursing through me, igniting my focus as I began to jot down potential strategies, notes, and possible allies who had witnessed her deceit. Minutes turned into hours as I pored over the details, my heart racing with the thrill of plotting my revenge. I could feel the tension in my shoulders ease slightly as the plan crystallized. I was no longer a victim. I was a strategist, ready to take back what was rightfully mine, but beneath the surface of my determination lay a flicker of doubt. Would my plan be enough? Would they believe me? These questions haunted me as I prepared to present my case to Sophie and Michael. It was time to finalize my strategy and rally my support before moving forward into the storm that was sure to follow. The boardroom was a battlefield, the air thick with anticipation and tension as I stood at the head of the long, gleaming table, my heart pounding like a war drum. Sunlight filtered through the tall windows, illuminating the faces of my colleagues, each one a mix of curiosity and skepticism, their eyes fixed on me like a hawk poised to strike. I could almost taste the bitterness of betrayal in the air, a stark reminder of the divide that had grown between Jessica and me, like a chasm that threatened to swallow everything whole. Taking a deep breath, I gripped the edges of the table, feeling the cool, smooth surface beneath my palms, a brief comfort against the storm raging within me. I glanced at Jessica, seated at the opposite end, her expression a mask of defiance, arms crossed like a fortress guarding her ambitions. Memories of our past camaraderie flooded my mind, laughter shared over coffee breaks now replaced by this palpable animosity. I had felt betrayed, and now I was determined to confront that betrayal head-on. "Jessica," I began, my voice steady, though I could feel the tremor of adrenaline coursing through me. "We need to address what happened and the impact your actions have had on our team. I won't allow you to undermine my leadership any longer." My words hung in the air, heavy and charged like a live wire just waiting for a spark. She leaned back in her chair, a smirk playing on her lips. "Oh, Amber, you really think you can come in here and dictate terms? You're a joke and everyone knows it. You're not the leader they need. You've shown your true colors and they're not pretty." The venom in her tone stung, igniting a fire within me that I could no longer contain. I took a step forward, the polished floor echoing my movement, a declaration of my intent. "I may have made mistakes, but I am here to take responsibility and rebuild trust. You, on the other hand, have chosen to play games while the rest of us are left to pick up the pieces. This isn't just about power, it's about integrity and the people who rely on us." A murmur rippled through the room, a mixture of surprise and intrigue as my colleagues leaned in, drawn by the intensity of the confrontation. I could see doubt flickering in their eyes like a candle's flame caught in a draft. I pressed on, fueled by a newfound clarity. "We need unity, not division. Your manipulations have hurt our team, and I refuse to let you continue this cycle of betrayal. I stand here today not just for myself but for everyone in this room who deserves better." I could feel my heart racing, but I refused to back down. Jessica's facade began to crack as the reality of my words sank in. For the first time, I saw a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. "What are you proposing then?" she asked, her tone shifting, no longer laced with mockery but edged with genuine curiosity. "I propose we come together, set aside our differences, and focus on rebuilding what we've lost. I'm calling for a company-wide meeting where we can openly discuss the way forward, listen to each other, and make amends. This is our chance to rise from the ashes, not just as individuals but as a united front." The tension in the room shifted, morphing into something tangible, a collective hope igniting in the depths of my colleagues' hearts. I could see them exchanging glances, weighing my words, and for the first time in what felt like ages, I believed in my vision. I had come to reclaim my power, and in that moment, I realized I was not alone. Jessica's expression hardened, but I could sense the cracks forming in her defenses. "Fine, Amber, but don't expect me to make this easy for you. You'll need to prove that you can lead us out of this mess." I nodded, the weight of her challenge settling over me like a cloak. But I was ready to take on whatever lay ahead. This was not just about confronting Jessica, it was about embracing my role as a leader, one who would rise above betrayal and inspire my team to follow me into a brighter future. The battle had begun, and I was determined to win it for all of us. The aftermath of the confrontation weighed heavily on me as I sat in my office, the familiar surroundings now feeling foreign and strained. The air was thick with uncertainty, the fluorescent lights above casting a harsh glare on the remnants of my carefully laid plans. I could hear the faint echoes of voices in the hall, whispers that carried a mix of skepticism and cautious optimism. The team was still reeling from the intensity of our meeting, their reactions a swirling blend of hope and doubt. As I reflected on the chaos that had unfolded, I felt a flicker of relief. It was a small victory, yet it marked a turning point, I had faced my colleagues, laid bare my vulnerabilities, and committed to rebuilding the trust I had shattered. I could almost feel the tension in the room beginning to dissipate, replaced by a shared understanding that healing would take time. The journey ahead was daunting, but I was ready to embrace it. Moments later, David walked into my office, his expression softening as he took in my weary demeanor. "You did well today, Amber," he said, his voice a soothing balm against the chaos of my thoughts. I offered him a tentative smile, grateful for his unwavering support. "It's just the beginning, though. I need to prove that I can lead with integrity, not just ambition." He nodded, his gaze steady. "You've taken the first step. Now it's about consistency. The team needs to see that you're committed to their well-being, not just the bottom line. Remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint." His words resonated deeply, reminding me that the path to redemption would require patience and perseverance. As I left the office that evening, the sun dipped low on the horizon, casting a warm golden glow over the city. I took a deep breath, inhaling the crisp air, feeling a sense of hope wash over me. My heart stirred with the knowledge that I was not alone in this journey. I had the support of my family, friends, and a team willing to give me a second chance. The road ahead would be fraught with challenges, but I was determined to navigate it with grace and integrity. I would not allow my past mistakes to define me. Instead, I would use them as stepping stones toward a brighter future. The thought of rebuilding not only my career, but also the relationships I had nearly lost filled me with a renewed sense of purpose. I was ready to step into this new chapter, embracing the lessons learned and the promise of what lay ahead. As I stood at the window of my apartment, the warm glow of the setting sun painted the sky in hues of orange and pink, casting a soft light that felt almost like a balm on my soul. The city below buzzed with life, a stark contrast to the stillness I felt within. I had navigated through a storm of betrayal and emerged on the other side, not unscathed but transformed. The journey had taught me invaluable lessons about resilience and the importance of integrity in the face of adversity. My heart swelled with a quiet pride as I reflected on the path I had forged, one that led me back to my core values and the people I cherished. In the aftermath of my confrontation with Jessica and the board, I had witnessed a shift in the dynamics at work. Colleagues who once regarded me with suspicion now approached me with cautious optimism, eager to collaborate and rebuild what had been fractured. I remembered the expressions of hope and determination that had filled the meeting room, a collective desire to move forward together. It was a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there existed a flicker of light, a possibility for renewal. I thought of my mother, her influence looming large, yet I felt empowered to assert my vision, one rooted in empathy and collaboration. I was no longer just a leader driven by ambition. I had become a steward of my team's trust and well-being. I knew there would be challenges ahead, but I was ready to face them head-on, armed with the lessons I had learned. With a deep breath, I took one last look at the sunset, a symbol of endings and new beginnings. I was determined to share my story, to inspire others who might find themselves in the throes of betrayal and doubt. I hoped that by speaking out, I could help others navigate their own tumultuous waters, showing them that redemption was possible. As I turned away from the window, a sense of fulfillment washed over me. I had reclaimed my narrative, and it was time to share it with the world. I wanted to encourage those who had followed my journey to join me in this new chapter. Subscribe to the channel and activate the bell.